Good. So let us move forward, always forward, to our third and final segment for today's quarterly update. And that is on CRL's licensing activities. And as many of you know, back in October, we held our third Desiderata forum, which was the topic of this event was on investing in open primary sources. This is an event that we've seen increasing uptake from among the members, and we've been very encouraged by the participation and comments we've received. We wanted to present a bit of a précis and what we've learned from conversations among the panelists, the presenters, the attendees, and CRL members afterwards. And I'm very pleased to bring up here Maria Smith, who's a digital repository analyst, among other things here at CRL, and is largely responsible for coordinating the source material within Desiderata and other focuses of the Desiderata forum. So Maria.
Thanks, James. Hi, this is Maria, and yes, on October 18th, the Center for Research Libraries hosted our third annual Desiderata forum. The forum is a regular event that we hold to discuss emerging challenges in the acquisition, licensing, and enabling access to databases and data services for scholarly uses. This event helps us to identify priorities for both CRL and NEURL in our analyses and licensing activities that we conduct on behalf of our member libraries. In the past, we've covered topics including licensing of big data and investing in the persistence of news. The 2018 forum focused on the topic of investing in open primary sources. This topic is in response to recent trends that libraries have seen in primary source material and data for humanities and social science research increasingly moving behind paywalls. Developed in cooperation with NEURL, the event was organized into 3 sessions that examined existing and emerging models for open access to materials in areas of news, archives, government information, and other types of primary data. The presentations and discussions that took place suggested ways that our libraries can leverage their collective influence to minimize or eliminate barriers to open access and to achieve greater returns on our investments in digital resources. Just so you know, the slides from all of the forum presentations are available on the event webpage, and as well as the summary report from the event. The first session of the forum explored existing models for open access and cooperative investment of primary source resources. The presenters, who represented 3 different organizations, discussed the pros, cons, and the possibilities that each of their different models offer. A major focus of each of the presentations was how these resources are sustained by community-driven activities and initiatives, and the discussions explored the ways those programs benefit the communities that they're supported by. For instance, the Inter-University Consortium for Political and Social Research, Icpsr, maintains a vast archive of data for scholarly research. Icpsr is governed by their member institutions who guide the decisions regarding the organization's collection development, financial investments, preservation and access decisions, and educational program developments. The members of Icpsr not only benefit from the repository, the consortium also provides educational opportunities for students, faculty, and staff at member institutions. These educational opportunities include one-on-one consulting for data use, webinars, in-house representative meetings, and the most significant is their summer program, where researchers participate in social science quantitative methods training. In terms of the amount of open data that's provided by Icpsr, while there are approximately 10,000 studies available to members, 3,000 studies are available to anyone in the public. The Biodiversity Heritage Library, or BHL, also runs on a membership model, but operates as a virtual consortium of natural history and botanical institutions. The group has worked together to develop a biodiversity library by digitizing their own collections to be made freely available online. A major contribution and benefit of the BHL is the work that they have done to extract taxonomic names and other taxonomic information from biodiversity literature and make it openly available online so that it can be utilized by the entire biodiversity research community. The Medical Heritage Library, or MHL, is also a consortium set up similarly to BHL, but recently became incorporated as a nonprofit 501c3 organization in order to bring in new potential funding opportunities. The members of MHL work to expand the boundaries of what and how much medical knowledge is available online. Both MHL and BHL rely on members to help with outreach and to provide other types of in-kind contributions to support the operations of the programs and to help sustain the projects as they continue to grow. Finally, the participants learned about the United States Agricultural Information Network, USAIN. The USAIN group has developed a grassroots approach to identifying and exploiting funding solutions in order to preserve important agricultural literature and information. USAIN efforts are entirely driven and guided by a nationwide network of agricultural libraries. The current initiative to preserve and digitize agricultural literature is Project Series, which is funded and coordinated at CRL. But this builds upon decades of the group's preservation work and their development of a systematic process to target a discrete corpus of valuable literature. All of the models that were explored in session 1 of the forum are made possible and sustainable through member support and community-driven action. The second session went on to explore new emerging initiatives for open access of primary source materials. These are projects that rely on but operate externally to libraries. The discussions from session 2 focused on the significant challenges of these new emerging models and the ways in which library communities support them. The nonprofit Reveal Digital relies on a model where libraries can contribute funding to create open access resources. Reveal has faced many challenges in developing and maintaining open access resources for research, which include the challenge of establishing sustainable funding and meeting the high costs required to build adequate infrastructure. The project is library-driven and is made stronger by support and involvement of the CRL member community. For instance, CRL holds the complete Reveal collection as it exists to date, ensuring its long-term availability, regardless of what happens to Reveal. Deirdre Ryan from Ithaca reported on JSTOR's current and future plans to build open access content and software onto their existing JSTOR infrastructure. JSTOR has several primary source collections, such as African World Heritage Sites and JSTOR Global Plans, that combine open discoverability with paid-for enhanced functionality and use of content. JSTOR is also currently developing a software that will assist libraries in publishing their own collections on a web platform hosted by JSTOR, which can then be made open to other institutions. Generally speaking, the development of JSTOR is bound by their publisher partnerships and the requirements of working with publishers, but they do encourage and help publishers to release content openly when they can. Expanding on the challenges that face open access primary resources, Bernie Riley then discussed the current trend toward commercialization of public content that is threatening the open accessibility of public domain documentation and data. Some data and documentation that have been aggregated and are exposed freely on the web by organizations such as the International Consortium for Investigative Journalists are susceptible to loss or commercialization of content due to those organizations' lack of resources, which also puts the persistence of their content and archives at risk. Support from libraries can help to mitigate that risk while also assisting these organizations to build more sustainable systems. In partnering with and supporting these initiatives, libraries make these programs stronger, more sustainable, and more trustworthy. We do this not only through providing funding, but also advocacy, pooling, and providing our expertise and guidelines and other types of support. In the final session of the afternoon, we convened a group of collection development and digital resource experts from the CRL community to comment on the presentations and the issues that had been raised throughout the afternoon's presentation. The panel discussed a variety of issues, including the difficulty of sustaining open access initiatives, the dearth of community-owned infrastructure for digital collections, and the complexity and lack of transparency of the current open access landscape. For CRL, the panel brought to light several major takeaways. First, that we need a call to action for our libraries to leverage as a group of organizations so that we can affect and guide open access of initiatives in important ways. Lindsay Cronk discussed possible approaches for leveraging our collective power and influence through existing library member communities like CRL and NEURL so that we might engage in more active support of knowledge creation, knowledge sharing, and preservation. Second, there's a general need for consistent analysis of open access resources, as analysis plays a vital role in library investment decision-making. Janet Holm presented on the criteria developed by Ohio University for evaluating open access projects and informing their library's investment decisions. OU's metrics addressed funding models, content and subjects covered, format, ease of use, and overall credibility, among other criteria. Our third major takeaway was that no single organization has the staff to handle the demand of creating, maintaining, and promoting open access. But if we distribute the work across our organizations, we can sustain these programs for the long term. Finally, there's a wide range of open access primary resources that are made available by libraries and other organizations, but discovery of these materials can be difficult or sometimes impossible. Our community can exploit and build on existing infrastructure and utilize existing solutions to address this problem. As Elizabeth Kirk discussed, there is a wide range of community-funded initiatives, but still many challenges in discovery and interoperability of these various resources. One approach to solving that problem, as suggested by Elizabeth, is a cooperatively built platform for hosting and providing access to primary source materials. The panelists encouraged forum participants to bear down together on these issues that were identified during the forum, and also discussed how CRL and NEURL are well positioned to assess and distribute the responsibilities for developing solutions, as the original mission and work of CRL has always been focused on facilitating collective decisions and action among our many member libraries. The presentations and discussions from the forum suggest to CRL and NEURL strategies for moving forward and responding to the challenges and opportunities identified. There are 4 specific areas that CRL has identified as priorities in this effort, and these are investment, analysis, metrics, and advocacy. These will form the basis for our strategic planning in setting an open access investment agenda, an agenda that CRL is proposing for both CRL and NEURL. Today, I'm going to focus on the ways CRL currently does engage and will continue to engage in 2 of these areas, and that's investment and analysis. But first, I'll briefly explain the other 2 in our approaches to metrics and advocacy. In terms of metrics, we believe that CRL and NEURL should establish a common set of underlying principles for open access providers that will define acceptable funding models, required disclosures and mechanisms for accountability, and provide for them a baseline for the terms of service of resources that will qualify it as an open access resource. As far as advocacy, we believe that CRL and NEURL should enunciate a formal policy position objecting to the privatization and commercialization of public domain, public interest, and cultural heritage materials. Moving on to investment and analysis, as I mentioned, CRL is engaged in initiatives that support an investment and analysis of open access resources. In terms of investment, we believe that CRL and NEURL should allocate significant funding on an annual basis for investment in open access primary source resources. That funding should be devoted to supporting organizations that have the capabilities, assets, and infrastructure, and that are adequately accountable to the CRL and NEURL communities. To this end, CRL plans to engage in outreach and partnerships to support sustainable open access repositories. An example of these activities is our engagement in the Global Collections Initiative, which is a Mellon-funded project currently underway that James mentioned in his presentation earlier. GCI is now looking at organizations that produce and disseminate born digital and open access resources that serve specialized research communities, so as to identify potential partners and projects for our support. Also, in terms of investment, CRL will encourage and support new and innovative models for library support of open access resource creation. An example of this is the CRL and Eastview collaboration for the Global Press Archive. The GPA is a member sponsorship of open access and selected in copyright global newspapers, prioritized for digitization by our community and negotiated by Eastview. The project will generate 3 million pages of open access content to be made available eventually through CRL. Additionally, CRL will facilitate investment decisions through our G Collections platform, which I'll detail more in a moment. In terms of analysis, we believe that to achieve maximum impact and optimal return on investment, a portion of CRL and neural funding allocation should be invested in the analysis and evaluation of open access primary source electronic resources. In this effort, CRL is currently expanding our analysis of open primary source resources and their providers as reported on in our Desiderata platform. Desiderata now features approximately 40 reviews with critical information on open access resources and their providers, all tagged as open access and can be filtered down to just open access resources. This subset of resources in Desiderata is continuing to grow, and more detailed information on the providing programs and organizations is currently being added. On that note, let's take a closer look at the Desiderata platform and the ways it serves as a mechanism for gathering information and analysis in order to inform neural and CRL member investment in open access programs. In representing the analysis and evaluation of open access primary resources, the Desiderata reviews provide information on repositories and platforms in terms of their content, delivery systems, access conditions, discovery mechanisms, and terms of use, while also calling attention to the particular strengths and weaknesses of the resource. Additionally, through Desiderata provider profiles, information on the organizations behind open access resources are revealed, describing their funding models and other financial information, mission, governance, and organizational history. The provider profiles in Desiderata aim to represent the organizations in terms of their overall transparency and trustworthiness. Desiderata is an interactive platform where members can provide feedback on resources that are important to or of interest to their institution. This helps CRL to set priorities for analyses, investments, and potential partnerships with providers. In the way of supporting potential open access investment, CRL has developed the G Collections platform, which facilitates decisions regarding CRL digitization and resource development activities. As mentioned and explained by James earlier, the G Collections platform provides an interactive space that enables members to identify, propose, and weigh in on materials and data sets in order to set priorities for digitization and dissemination. For potential projects, the platform features a proposal page that describes the materials, the project rationale, while also capturing information on content sources, processing requirements, and costs. The tools offered in G Collections help CRL to evaluate and prioritize projects for digitization and web dissemination. Members can add comments to the proposals, recommend that CRL prioritize certain projects, and track the progress of a project, all within the G Collections platform. Through these mechanisms, the platform supports the pooling of community expertise to guide the digitization of collections and the creation of new digital resources for area and international studies. So that's been my brief overview of the 2018 Desiderata Forum and our CRL's plans for future open access agenda, with of course more information to come in the future. And I just want to remind everyone you can access the slides and the summary report from the event webpage.
Thank you, Maria. This is James. And I think that was a nice encapsulation of the intent and the outcomes of the forum. I would encourage those who are on the line who attended the forum to speak up, or chat up, I suppose, what you took away from it as well. We would love to hear more feedback from you if you have it. The forum really weaved a long narrative about how models are changing and emerging, and the variety of competition that libraries face in funding and supporting, whether that's financially or in kind, programs and projects. Many of them are driven by the library community itself, but some are externally created and controlled. So, looking at the various models and suggesting a way that we can evaluate those, I think is it's a compelling challenge for CRL. On the one hand, the Desiderata platform was designed to provide critical and unbiased information, and in fact, many of the reviews that we've posted for various commercial products have met resistance or some concern from those providers, in that if we see a problem and we're pointing it out on that site, they grow concerned over CRL's investment, and I think that's totally fair and appropriate for us to do. When we start looking at products or projects that are propelled from within our own community, I wonder whether we'll be walking a thin line in terms of evaluating those programs. I think in terms of the metrics and the analysis of this, though, I believe that it's critical that we work with those organizations to provide not just transparency of the collections, that is the openness and the discoverability, but the transparency of the operations. We, I think, have been guilty ourselves in the past of sometimes starting things up without the fullest basis of information from which the community might judge. And we are always heartened to receive the feedback and clarification and questions on those programs themselves. So transparency is, to my mind, a critical factor in working with these programs and helping member institutions make their own decisions on those programs. We have a couple of comments coming in, and we invite as many questions as you have. One question came up just in follow-up about the open access collections in Desiderata. And you, Maria, you said that those are available through the discovery filters. Is that right?
That's right, yeah. If you are go to the Desiderata dashboard, and under the Resource tab, there are a series of filter options on the left-hand side of the screen, and one of those is resource type. I think that's a little further along down, but on the left-hand side. And under resource type, if you select open access, that will take you to the full set of Desiderata open access resources. And you can, of course, create a watch list or watch any of the resources to track as CRL adds more resources, updates, changes, or there's any activity related to those.
Thank you very much. Yeah, please do go onto Desiderata and take a look at what's going and make comments. If you're logged in as a CRL member, you can see comments as well as some of the details for commercial offers and the like. There was a question about the Global Press Archive, and Maria mentioned that this is a model that CRL is working on with Eastview. I think, Maria, you mentioned that the material will be made openly accessible eventually through CRL. I just wanted I think the question of clarification was the open access will be available through Eastview's platform and also eventually CRL's, so that it's just, I think, a point of clarification as to the openness of that material as well.
Great.
We have a couple questions about, or comments about, the metrics themselves. What measures would we be looking to provide transparency? One commenter noted, yes, we need business model transparency. I absolutely agree. I think there are Janet Holmes' report on the metrics that Ohio University was looking at. I think we're very insightful in that they ranked a variety of open access initiatives according to, I believe it was something like 9 factors, and Maria highlighted the main ones, of course, being the content and the scope of the materials, the funding model being certainly a critical one, the ease of use and the applicability to things like research and teaching at the university. I think that we need to arrive at a set of metrics that one can measure across all of the various programs, and it's a bit of a challenge. But I think that the basis for the reviews and the provider profiles in Desiderata are a good start, And we'd look forward to hearing your comments further about what types of metrics we should be developing in common for all of these programs. There's a comment on the advocacy statement, and I think this is a good and interesting comment, that the policy or advocacy statement should be put in positive terms, not that we object to the commercialization of public domain materials, but that we strongly advocate for public domain materials remaining open. I think that that's a way of putting that certainly more strongly to those providers. One of the things that we were looking at as part of that, the agenda building or the leverage, I think, that CRL and Neural can apply to commercial products is in that very area. As we look at models like we're putting together with the Global Press Archive, working with the providers who are looking to commercialize content and figuring out pathways forward to make that those collections and those materials more widely open. At least eventually open, I think, is our furthest fallback. But we want to really advocate strongly for remaining open from the get-go. So thank you for that comment. I think it's a good perspective. Oh, and one participant just mentioned in the action agenda and in building this conversation forward, it is not just CRL's agenda alone, that Neural, the Northeast Research Libraries, who we planned this event, also expressed strong support for working together on working with CRL on the metrics piece, and that they've been having numerous conversations about their own open access agenda and looking at ways that they can evaluate or compare those different programs together. So I think that it's a great area of collaboration between CRL and Neural in working forward. I think that's the end of those comments and questions. So thank you very much for those, and we will make sure to address those in our future communications and as we develop our statements. We really appreciate all the comments you've made. And with that, we'll call this to a close with a teaser for some future events from Virginia Kirk.
Thanks, James. Thank you to all of our presenters today and to all of you for participating. We've got the contact information up here. I think if there are content questions about the Midas project for Paul Gillingham, James should be able to forward those to Paul. I want to remind you about upcoming CRL programming and events, and we do offer these webinars quarterly. There will be updates on similar themes of digitization and licensing and shared print, but specific status updates in the February webinar, and that is slated for February 13th. Registration is open now. And then we definitely want to remind you and invite you to participate in the annual Global Collections Forum, which will be held in Chicago on May 24th through the 25th. And that's immediately following the Council of Voting Members meeting on Thursday the 24th. And I know that that's a popular event at the Gleacher Center in downtown Chicago. May should be a nice time to be here. As you leave the webinar, we encourage you to fill out the follow-up survey. Your feedback is extremely important to our programming and planning for events here at CRL. So please, if you could take time to make some comments in that survey. And a reminder that the presentations will be available soon. Recordings will be available, as well as the slides linked from the event page, and the recordings will be in YouTube. And for additional information, make sure you stay tuned to information on our website and connect our e-newsletter. Thanks very much. Have a good day.